Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Conversation in the Cockpit. Today I have Miss Jenergy here, or Big Jenergy on Instagram. Hi y'all, what's up? We're gonna dive into some questions. So, where are you currently in your training?
So I am about to be finished with my commercial. I have my check ride scheduled. Okay, we're next on. So I'm right. I see the finish line in sight.
Yes, we love that finish line. Um, how long have you been doing your training for?
So I got my private pilot license in the summer of 2024, and that was kind of like first half of the year was dedicated to that. And then I took a little break from training to do some fun flights with friends. I got a lot of cross country time, a lot of flying to unfamiliar airports and getting used to talking to ATC. And then I started instrument at the end of 2024, got my instrument rating in March of 2025, about a year ago. And since then, I've been building time, doing fun flights, and getting ready to get that commercial done.
How long did you think flight training was going to take, and then how long did it actually take?
Oh my gosh. I thought I was going to get everything done like that. And, because I saw a lot of people doing that, and I saw that, oh, you can get all your ratings done in a year. And I thought, wow, that sounds pretty cool. It took a little bit longer than that. I mean, obviously, 2 years in now, I'm about to finish my commercial, which now I'm learning that is more normal than I thought. It's not as quick as I thought it was gonna be, but honestly, in some ways, I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think people don't realize how many factors go into training, like how many things have to line up in order for like lessons and like check rides to line up. And then also just like the amount of information that's involved. Like I think when people are set up like through family members to go like through and they already have like the information and the knowledge behind it, like it's a lot easier for them.
Yeah.
Versus people like if you're coming in super green, none of your parents have ever flown airplanes, like you really don't know anything about the industry. There's so many nuances involved.
Exactly. And that's me. I'm the first pilot in my family. I mean, half the people in my family are scared of heights, right? I don't know where I got it from, but going in, I didn't know much about anything with aviation, with the industry, with how flying works. And that really made me kind of snap back into my like study mode, right? Yeah, it was totally different, but yeah, I love it.
All right. What's something about training timelines that new pilots completely misunderstand?
I think going off of what I was just saying that when you go online and you see these kids that are getting all their ratings done in a year, a lot of people don't understand that A, that's not necessarily common, and B, that may not be what you actually want.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times what students are doing to make this possible, first of all, they're going somewhere with perfect weather. Most of the time they're going to places like Phoenix or somewhere in Florida, which may not be realistic for everybody, right? If you're training in the Midwest, you're not going to get all your ratings done in a year. It's just not going to happen.
We were just talking about this earlier too. The weather this week has been like crazy.
It's been all over the place. It was 70 and sunny on Monday. Yesterday it snowed. Like, what are they doing?
It really is kind of like you don't know what's going to happen with the weather.
No, we are in that season, March, April. It's a wild card. So weather is a huge factor. And like, if you're comparing yourself to students that are training in Phoenix, Arizona, where it's clear and million every single day, it's just not a fair comparison. And then you have the fact that these kids are most of the time, the vast majority of the time, they're taking up giant loans to be able to afford this accelerated pace. And that might not be something that you want because sure, you're going to get all your ratings done in a year, but then 6 months after you graduate and you're making peanuts as a brand new instructor, you have to make that loan payment.
Yeah, that's another factor that I forgot to mention is like finances in general. So,
Yeah, people don't talk about that a lot, but it's the reality of it.
yeah. Did you ever feel behind compared to other students? And then what helped you stop comparing your progress to those students?
Yeah, I'll admit that was a tough part of it for me. I'm very competitive and I hold myself to a really high standard. And, growing up, I was that kid that kind of didn't really have to work that hard in school. Everything kind of came easy to me. I learn things very quickly. So when I got into flight training, it was a little bit different. There were some things I picked up on really quick. The like maneuvers, for example, were generally pretty easy for me. I picked up on the maneuvers easily. I picked up on a lot of the knowledge portions quickly, but learning to land the plane was really hard. That was something that nobody told me was going to be difficult. And I didn't know until months later that the reason I sucked at landing was because I didn't know I needed a booster seat.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. As soon as you get
Nobody
the
told me.
booster seat,
Nobody told me.
it completely changes your landing.
It changed the whole game. Like, I could not land the plane to save my life. I didn't know what was going wrong. And of course,
It's because you're not tall enough to see that sight picture. And like, if you can't see that sight picture properly, like, you never know when to properly flare. Yeah.
And it didn't help that my instructor was like 6'4". So
Yeah.
he didn't know what was going on. I had to fly with our chief pilot. I did 2 laps in the pattern with him, and he was like, wait here. He runs into the FBO, grabs me a booster seat, and says, put this behind you and put this under you, and let's see how you do. And then I was fine. So that was definitely something that slowed me down, I would say, in terms of the progress I could have been making with my private. And then lately, as I've gotten into the later stages of it, I've had to take breaks because of finances. I had a lot of money saved up when I started. And then I got to a point where I was like, oh, wow, this was more expensive than I thought it was going to be. So that's definitely pushed back the timeline I thought I would have. But honestly, that's just what it is. There's a billion things that can push you back. Weather, maintenance. I mean, you might go to a school that doesn't have a lot of airplanes, but there's a lot of students.
You have, there's also DPE availability, instructor availability, aircraft availability, lots of things. Yeah, I think during my initial training too, like I had like this kind of like start, stop, because like I would have money for it and then I wouldn't have money for it. And I would have money for it and then I wouldn't have money for it. So, I mean, having all your financials, like that's the one great thing about the student loans is you don't have to worry about the money. But then at the same time, you do
Later. Yeah, I can't
have to worry about the money.
Yeah, so it's really a choice of like, would you rather deal with that part now or later?
Yeah, would you rather? What's a phase of training that almost everyone struggles with, but nobody talks about?
I would say one thing that was hard for me coming out of instrument and back into commercial was remembering to look outside again.
Yeah.
It was rough. And it's actually funny because right after I got my instrument rating, I did some aerobatic training at Patty Wagstaff's rule at St. Augustine. That's all visual. Like, it's so visual that they cover up like all your instruments and they're like, they just save your airspeed and they're like, that's all you get.
They make you feel it.
Yeah, which is awesome. Like, that's actually my favorite kind of flying. I love that like seat of your pants kind of flying. But I'd forgotten how to do it because my life was all instruments for like 4 months. So
yeah. What kind of aerobatic maneuvers did you learn?
Oh gosh, we did everything, all kinds of loops, rolls, Cubans, hammerheads. I look hammerheads, clovers. Clovers are fun. Go over an intersection and just
I haven't done a clover yet.
Oh my gosh, they are so much fun. Yeah, I love it. It's so satisfying to like get it perfect.
Yeah, I love the hammerhead, like the feeling of the drop, and then also the reverse Cubanades.
So I haven't touched reverse yet.
You feel so badass when you do it. It's pretty much like a Cubanate, you're just doing it backwards.
Oh, that's so fun. Yeah, I got to do more of that. They had me doing sequences too, so I was like,
that's why.
I was having fun. They were like, you could compete if you wanted to.
I want to should. You'd be really good at it.
Oh, thanks. I mean, hey, if anybody wants to sponsor me, I'd appreciate it because that's kind of the only thing stopping me.
Yeah, get like a little Satavria or something like that too.
Like a little souped up, little Satavria or Super D. I'm here for it.
All right. So was there ever a moment in training where you thought, why am I even doing this?
I followed up from a guy named.
Honestly, no.
Okay. Didn't ever hit that?
No. There were times where it was tough and there were challenges that I didn't expect to have, but I never questioned it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's good. What kept you going on the days when flying just felt frustrating?
I
Overcat over here.
just told myself, like, I'm on a mission. This is your mission. All right, you have to learn how to land the plane. Then it was you have to master crossword landings. Then it was you have to get your private. There's always a mission. I'm a very mission oriented person. So I was like, you need to see this through no matter what. It doesn't matter how it goes, how long it takes, what you have to do. You need to do this. And when you do, it's going to feel amazing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what kept me pushing through and keeps me pushing through in training.
That's good. Yeah, I think looking at it as missions is like a really great way to look at it. Like even I think for a while I saw on your Instagram you were trying to like land at every single airport, like in Illinois or something like that, or every single GA airport.
Yeah, my goal is actually, and this is like a long-term life goal, is I want to land at every public airport in the United States.
Yeah.
There's 5,080 of them as of now.
Wow. That's a lot of landing.
That is a lot of landings, but landings are fun.
So I hear landings are fun. Have you ever gone anywhere over like in Indiana? Because I know a couple good restaurant places out there.
Yeah,
Columbus has a good like breakfast spot. There's Coaster Cafe that's over at Terre Haute. If you go down to Kentucky, I think it's Owensboro. They have the Moonlight Barbecue Cafe. And then there's a couple other. Oh, Eagle Creek, Rick's Boatyard. We actually just went there like Tuesday night. So
okay, very cool. Yeah, I've been out to Indianapolis. I actually landed at Owensboro for my long solo cross country, but it was the middle of the night, so there was no restaurant activity going on at that point.
it's pretty good. It's like all you can eat too. So I always go for like the mac and cheese, and then I put brisket on top, and then the barbecue sauce. So it's
really great. It does sound really good, actually.
Yeah. That's that Kentucky barbecue too. Yes, the Kentucky barbecue. What's your best advice for staying consistent when progress feels slow?
That's a good question. I feel like one thing that really helps is to have goals outside of aviation as well. I know, and I totally know what it's like to get so fixated on your training, and you should. I mean, you should be really focused and taking it seriously, but it's not always going to be going full throttle, right? You're going to have peaks and valleys, ups and downs. And when things are going slower in training, I feel like it helps to have something outside of your training to look forward to as well. So for me, I recently gotten into running. So I always have these running goals. I'm trying to improve my mile time. I'm trying to run a half marathon in January. And all these different goals give me milestones to reach and to remind myself like, hey, I can do things. I'm good at things. So even if training isn't progressing at that particular moment at the pace you want it to, if you have something else guiding you and bringing you into your best self, I think that's going to help you out a lot.
Yeah, so I think what you're talking about is kind of like having a quality of life. Like your whole entire life isn't centered around a job. Yes. Your job is obviously like a lot of fun. Like this is my office. Like this is pretty cool. But like having something outside of the office to also focus on is also like super important to be a well-rounded human being.
Absolutely, yes. We can't all be aviation robots.
Yes. What's a mistake you made during training that actually made you a better pilot later on?
Yeah, my God.
So when I was first starting to work on commercial last summer, I made a mistake of getting very fixated, and that led to actually a very dangerous situation. I was at Lake in the Hills practicing power off 180s, and I was just like, weather was nice when I left, and I was just like, I'm just gonna go to Lake in the Hills, blast a bunch of power off 180s, and then come back to DuPage. And I actually recorded each lap of the pattern on my Ray-Ban Metas. So looking back, I didn't realize this in the moment, but looking back, every pass, the weather was getting worse and worse and worse. There were these big, scary looking clouds getting scarier and scarier building in the distance. And then all of a sudden there was rain and lightning. And somehow in the moment, I didn't notice any of this because I was like, nope, I got to make my point. Nope, I got to make my point. Nope, I got to make my point. And it's funny because there was another pilot on frequency that was also practicing power off 180s. And at one point, he basically told me, he was like, yeah, I'm going to get going. There's like a lot of lightning out there. You should probably go too. And I was like, oh, he's right. Now, what I should have done, seeing where the storm was coming from, I should have just hunkered down at Lake at the Hills and waited for it to pass. But I was like, I have to have, this is a rental. I have to have it back by 7 o'clock. We need to go back to DuPage. But of course, the hub of all this activity was near DuPage. There was a lot of pink around DuPage.
Yeah.
And I said, I just need to get back there. So I made a beeline for DuPage, and there was, I could see the cells. It was a very localized storm, so I was able to pick my way around visually, but looking at the radar, like, I had no business where I was, right? There was a wall of pink behind me. There was a wall of pink at the end of the runway. It was so windy out. You know, it's bad when ATC automatically reads the winds to everybody that's coming.
Oh yeah, with everybody that's coming in for a landing, they're like winds are da da da.
You know, winds are like, 40, gusting 45. They're basically saying like, what are you doing here? But yeah, so we were coming in and the only other plane out was a medevac, and I was like, oh wow, okay. So I felt, but I had no time to judge myself because I had to get back on the ground as safely as I could. I made a beeline for that runway. I have never felt so much wind shear in my life. It was a full-on rodeo. I was bouncing all over the place, and I just kept thinking it was so bad that I figured I might get hit with a microburst. And you know how they say that drunk drivers survive accidents because their bodies are very loose?
Yeah.
I tried to make my body as loose as possible in case I hit the ground. That's where my state of mind.
Oh my.
I was like, this could be the end, but I'm just gonna try to I'm gonna make it on the runway, or if I have to put it down in a field coming up. I took inventory of all the different places I could have set the plane down, and I was preparing for anything that could happen. And I kept flying that plane all the way down, and thankfully I landed at DuPage, and you know how they have those long runways there.
It was a super long run.
It was 2-0, right? So I said, you know what? I can afford to go a little bit fast. I'm not lying. I was really fast over the numbers, way faster than I've ever landed before. But I said, I just need to get on here and I need to have some speed because this wind is kicking my ass. But I made that landing and I got on the ground safely. And the funny thing is, 2 minutes after I landed, the storm passed and the sky was beautiful. And it was a perfect day out again. And I'm like, you know how crazy it would have been if I had gotten hit by a microburst, slammed into the ground, and I'm just like floating off to heaven. And I see the storm clearing and I'm like, man. So that was definitely probably the dumbest thing that I've done so far in my flight journey. And I did learn a lot from that. But I also learned that I do well under pressure. I handled the situation, and I think I had a smile on my face the whole time. Yeah, I think so. I did enjoy it on some level, but it was also, I know this is spinning out there.
I've definitely been in a situation like that where like the weather just kind of like crept up on me, and like it was more than I could handle in the moment, but like I still handled it. I got on the ground. I did lie down on the ground afterwards and take like a few minutes and like suck myself in and be like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to be on the ground instead of in the sky and whatever that was. But yeah, when you get hit with that moderate precip and turbulence, like it kind of like rocks you a little bit. But like you said, you handled the situation and, you're still alive today to talk about it. So
Exactly. Thank God.
that matters.
Exactly.
Tell me about the moment during training where things kind of got like a little serious.
Instrument training was when things really got serious. I was like, I felt like I was a real pilot.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm really doing this.
Yeah. I know. I loved working on approaches. I still love like doing like my 6 hits. Like I never have to worry about my 6 hits coming up because like I'm always wanting to do those.
I love that. It's so fun. And whenever you can actually get a chance to do it in actual, it's the best.
Oh my gosh, yeah. When you get an actual approach, and there was one time we had to do a go around. We were coming back from like a long cross country, and it was just like the storm was like surrounding us on all sides, and we knew we needed to land, so we picked one airport. We were coming down in at minimums. It had to go around, and then of course we see the airport as we're going around, so like go to a different airport. So I could have asked for like a contact approach at that point, but didn't, because I figured landing at the other airport would have been a lot safer. But yeah, you do feel like an actual pilot when you start working on instrument, and then you go back to commercial and you start working chandelles and everything. What's your favorite commercial maneuver so far?
I love the power off 180 because it's so satisfying when you nail it.
Yeah. I like the chandelles just because like I like climbing up higher and higher.
Yeah, that is fun.
That and then you also have to do like the emergency spiral to then work on like the low approach or the ground reference maneuvers.
True, true. I like chandelles, but I noticed that when I first started doing them, I tried to do them like a barrel roll, and he's like, no, not like that. I'm like, okay, sorry.
You just want to do those barrel rolls.
I really do. Barrel rolls are fun.
What's something people worry about that pilots don't worry about at all?
Turbulence.
Yeah, like people. I was gonna say too.
If people think that it's gonna like damage the plane if it's a little bit bumpy, how I describe it is like it's like waves in the ocean or maybe like potholes on the road, but you just can't see them.
Yeah, I like the potholes. That makes a lot of sense because you're literally just like hitting a thermal, which is like, oh. What actually scares pilots while flying? For me, it's whenever anything lights up.
I was gonna say something coming up on a gauge that you don't expect to see or a light, but all of a sudden appears. That definitely gets your attention.
That or like any like weird noises that I haven't heard before definitely kind of like sets me a little bit on edge. Normally, it's usually not an issue, but
You know, actually really made my heart drop one time more than any of the actually scary situations I've been in. The first time that I ever did steep turns, and I had my iPad there, and I'm doing the turn, and I see a traffic alert for a plane that's right on top of me, and I about had a heart attack before I realized that was me.
yeah,
That was my ghost.
that was. I hate those ghost alerts. They're so annoying because then they're like traffic, and you're like, traffic where?
Traffic.
It's like
0 miles.
It's same altitude. Like what? Where? Where does this come from? Oh, I hate those ghosts. Kylie was saying other pilots scare her. That's so real. Yeah. It's not weather. It's not engine gauges. It's
Other pilots. I've had more incidents with other people trying to overtake me at a 310, and I'm like, you're a little sky chicken. Like, know your place.
know your place. What's something people would be shocked to learn about becoming a pilot?
Becoming a pilot is not like the fantasy of it. It's not Top Gun. It's not
Top Gun.
any of that. It's a lot of book work. It's like 10% flying the plane and 90% everything else. You have to learn so many different topics. You have to learn laws. You have to learn weather. You have to learn mechanical, electrical, all these different systems.
Yeah.
There's so many different things that go into it where it reminds me of college. It feels like each rating is like a year-long or at least like a semester-long college course.
Yeah, I can agree with that. Yeah, people don't understand how much like ground we have to learn in order to be able to go up into the sky and fly. So you're literally like a meteorologist, like a lawyer and everything else in between. Obviously not because you don't have to earn the degrees, but so you have to learn a lot. I think the rules and regulations was like the hardest thing for my brain to kind of like, because that's the one that we have like all the acronyms for, like A tomato flames and grab card, and just because there's so many things that you need to remember in order to stay legal, but that you kind of like forget on a daily basis.
Right.
Like even AVA, like knowing what kind of maintenance needs to be done on the plane, where to find the maintenance in the maintenance logs. So lots and lots of information that people don't know go into aviation.
Oh my gosh, so much information. And it's like all at once. Just like get waterboarded with it.
Yeah. Especially during like the private and the instrument stages. Once you get to commercial, it gets like a little bit easier because then you kind of know stuff like the back of your hand. But what's the most fun or unexpected thing you've done in a small airplane?
Oh my gosh, definitely aerobatics. Look, if you've never done aerobatic flight before, it's totally worth it. I know it's a little bit more expensive than renting a Skyhawk, but it is absolutely worth it. Not only is it the most fun that you'll ever have in an airplane, but it's going to really improve your stick and rudder skills.
Oh yes, 100%. Or at least go out there and get spin training because that's how most people get into aerobatics.
True, yeah, and that's going to save your life. You know, we all learn pair or, different acronyms for different aircraft. We all learn in theory what you're supposed to do if you get into a spin, but if you don't actually do it, you're not going to have the muscle memory.
Yeah, you're not going to have the muscle memory, and you also don't know how you're going to react in that situation.
That's true. And like spins, what actually surprised me about spins is they're not nearly as violent as I thought they were.
Yeah,
They're kind of chill.
they're kind of chill. Yeah, they're scary, but they're chill. The first time they're scary. After that, they're a lot easier. What's a way student pilots can make training flights more fun instead of just grinding hours?
Ooh, that's a good one.
I feel like your mission, like to land at every single airport, that's a good one.
Yeah, I think if you can find a way to gamify it, it becomes a lot more fun. So that was my way of doing it, was gamifying it, and also flying with friends a lot.
Oh yeah.
When you need to build cross-country time, don't just go up by yourself and use that typical route that the school has everybody do. No, go grab a friend, rent a plane, go find a restaurant 150 miles away, go make a day of it.
Yeah, have a little fun. Rent an Airbnb or something like that. Stay overnight.
And I mean, there's airports that have like mini golf courses and movie theaters and all this cool stuff attached to it. So like, go do that. I mean, being a pilot is such a privilege, and you're entitled to do so many amazing things with that. Use your free will.
Yes, use that free will. Have you been to Mackinac Island yet?
Not yet.
Yeah, so you got it.
I want to go this summer. I feel like that's a summer thing.
It is kind of a summer thing. We went over in October, so it was kind of cold, and it kind of had that like spooky vibe, and they were doing like kind of like haunted tours too. So that was okay, but I like that too. Mackinac Island's so cool. Definitely a great place to go for lunch. If someone is burning out during training, what's the one thing they should do differently?
I think if you're burning out, it might help you to take a short break, not a long time, but maybe like a week, week and a half, 2 weeks, depending on where you're at in your training, and just kind of let it breathe. I think that when people burn out, they tend to be very fixated on whatever it is they're dealing with at the moment, and they've lost sight of the bigger picture. So if you could just take a little step back and remind yourself why you're doing this, remember your why, look at the big picture, zoom out, take a breath, go for a run, go do some fun stuff with friends, family, take your mind off aviation for just a little bit. And then whenever you come back from those little breaks, at least for me, I found that I do like so much better.
Yeah. You need to give your brain a break from, like, especially I think once you reach like one of those plateaus, sometimes it's good to take those breaks. For sure. Do you think being a girly girl in aviation surprises people?
Yes. And like, I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal, but it does. I've told people in my life that I was in flight training, and a lot of people were like, oh, you're going to be a flight attendant. And no, and like, no shade at all the flight attendants. Y'all are great and the world needs you. But it's just funny that was what people jumped to.
Yeah. That was like their initial thought when you're like, hey, I'm interested in this flying thing.
Yeah, like if I were a dude, would you have said that? Yeah.
What's the funniest stereotype people have about female pilots?
I mean, it's kind of funny and it's also kind of sad and pathetic, but I've noticed that online people tend to make a correlation with how feminine presenting a woman is to her competence. That the women who, oh my gosh, she's wearing makeup, she brushed her hair, she's wearing pink, she has a crop top on, they assume that she doesn't take aviation seriously, she's not a good pilot, she doesn't know what she's doing, and I think that's really silly. I think it's very small-minded. I was actually just having a conversation with my friend about this. She's a runway model, so she does two kinds of runways. She's a runway model and she's a student pilot. So, and we were talking about this, that it's so odd that people seem to think that the fact that you dress a certain way or look a certain way that stops you from being a good pilot. Excuse me, the airplane does not care what you're wearing. The laws of physics don't care if you have lip gloss on or not, okay? Yeah. It's the same thing. And women are known to be good at multitasking. So yeah, I could take care of my appearance and then hop in the aircraft and do the damn thing and be great at it. And those things are not mutually exclusive. In fact, I think that women that take time to put effort into our appearance and that put looks together, we have attention to detail. And that is a great quality to have in the cockpit.
That is definitely a great quality to have in the cockpit. Yeah, I mean, like, if you make fun of how somebody like dresses, like, I don't think how somebody appears has any correlation to do with like their competency level.
At all.
The one thing that really makes me mad when I see like comments online is like when people are like, "Oh, she paid for her ratings." Like,
Yeah.
so when people say that, that's when I get mad because like if you knew the time, the effort, the amount of times I spent like crying after like a flight lesson or anything like that, then you would know that I didn't pay for my ratings in any shape.
Well, then you paid for them in terms of all the flight hours that you had to spend money on. So like, yeah, actually, like, yeah, I paid a lot of money, but yeah, no, it's so funny that like people assume that things are easier for us because we're women. No, couldn't be further from the truth. And if you're actually part of the industry, I feel like, that's not true.
Yeah, and recently people have been bringing up like what was her name? Like Judy Blalock or something like that.
Yeah, Tennessee flight.
Yeah, the NTSB report just recently came back out, so I know people have been talking about her quite a bit, but she didn't know how to use her autopilot.
And I hate to say this, I absolutely don't intend to speak ill of the dead. That woman had no business being in the cockpit of anything. She could have picked a different hobby, okay? I watched a video that she had up where she was doing a simple flight, straight shot east, 30-minute flight, easiest thing, clearing a billion outside. And she was flying instrumental. She was
going up and down, and
it was sunset. So there were like 5 different things telling her what direction she had to go, and she couldn't figure it out. So for people to take that and say, oh, it's because she was a woman. Oh, it's because she cared about her looks. That's why she crashed. No.
I mean, we're flying just fine right now. Like, I know how to use my autopilot. We're good.
Are you sure about that? Are you sure you're not secretly a man? Let me check.
I don't know. Like, let me, yeah. If you could give every student pilot one piece of advice before they start training, what would it be?
Oh gosh, so many. I would say before you start training, go into it. If you're not gonna take out loans, or which it's not for everybody. I didn't take out any loans actually. If you are gonna do the pay-as-you-go method, I would say make sure that you have a good amount saved up before you start, because when you start training, I mean, flying is a very perishable skill regardless, but when you're brand new, it drops off so quick. So if you want to make any real progress as a new student pilot, you should be flying ideally 2-3 times a week. Like, I would say bare minimum twice a week. So yeah, have to make sure that you're in a place where you can afford to do that. So thankfully for me, I did have money saved up and I was flying like 3-4 times a week. And that's something that really helped me. But if I wasn't able to do that, I feel like it would have taken me a lot longer to complete my private pilot, and it would have been a lot more frustrating, and it's not as much fun.
Yeah. I would say have all of your writs done, or as many of the writs out of the way as you possibly can.
Yeah, definitely get the writ done out of the way, at least for that rating, as like I know people that put it off to the end, and that's not fun.
Yeah. Because that's what extended my training a lot. Like, it took me like 2 years to get my private, just because like I would do like a lot of flying and then I'd be like, check ride ready. And then he'd be like, where's the written? And I'd be like, it's not done yet. So I really put off the ground. So that's why like now I like do the ground.
Gosh, you learned from experience.
Yes. Did you ever want to quit during training? You kind of already.
Absolutely not. No, it gets tough sometimes, but I'm not a quitter, and I'm never gonna quit.
Yeah. I'm not a quitter either. I don't think a lot of pilots are quitters.
Right, that's called resignation. That's it. That's a hazardous attitude. You can't be having that earlier.
What's the funniest thing that happened during a training flight?
Funniest thing that happened during a training flight. I would say the time that Okay, so when I was doing my instrument training, it was in these brand new 172s that were really nice and they featured cup holders. So I had gotten into the habit on all my flights of bringing like a can of Red Bull or sometimes a cup of coffee from the FBO and just popping it in the cup holder. On my instrument long cross country with my instructor, though, I had to use a different plane that was a little bit older, so it didn't have the cup holders. And I said, okay, no worries. Like, I'll be fine. But I was still in the habit of having those drinks. So we had stopped off at one of the airports on my route and I got some bio coffee and they did not have lids for the cups. So I think you can guess where this is going.
Oh yeah.
Things got a little bit turbulent and so beautiful white fuzzy seats were not so white fuzzy anymore. Yeah. But
They do have lids that you can put on top of like soda cans and stuff now.
okay.
Yeah. I think I saw them in Ava's reel recently.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to look into that. That is
So, and they're small enough to go over like energy drink like tops. So,
okay. We love the technology.
yeah. I think just some of the off the cuff stuff that instructors say is really funny too.
Yeah, I guess. A lot of my instructors have been kind of like serious with me, except I would say my most recent one is not. Actually, you met her. You did a video with her, Emma.
Yeah. And she's funny.
She's really fun.
When she was talking about her her emergency procedures, I was like, this sounds like so much fun.
Yeah, no, she's super cool. But my first instructor would always have some interesting comments for me.
Yeah.
Other than that, like, I don't know. Like, a lot of people I flown with have been kind of shy, which,
Yeah. I mean, like, I feel like that's a pilot's personality tendencies. Like, you know, we're used to like talking to ATC overcoms. Like, you don't have to like talk to anybody specifically, but have a slight tism. Just a touch of the tism. Just a touch of the tism. Enough to like airplanes and be obsessed with them.
yeah. So, in your opinion, what would be like your number one piece of advice for someone in my position about to finish my commercial?
Buy an airplane.
Buy an airplane.
Yes.
Okay. You heard-
I mean, buying an airplane teaches you a lot more about some of the more like theoretical stuff. So like when you're purchasing an aircraft, you really have to go into detail about like looking over like the maintenance logs. You should look over the maintenance logs. You should have an A&P mechanic look over the maintenance logs. You should have a friend look over the maintenance logs. So you learn a lot about like what it's like to purchase an aircraft. You also learn a lot about your specific aircraft itself. So like I did an owner assisted annual on the first annual of this aircraft. So I learned everything that there is to know about the systems, also like emergency procedures, because if anything happens to this plane, it falls back on me.
Right.
So I kind of like have to have that responsibility and I have to know. So yeah, I would say purchase an aircraft if you can. And our high yield savings account start squirreling away money.
Yeah. No, that's true. I got one of those.
Yeah. Because I had to save up. I think I've been saving up ever since I started training. So
At what point did you buy this airplane in your training?
I purchased it after my commercial.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So, and I knew I wanted to have like a cross country plane that I could like go to like different places in and yeah, just go on adventures with that. And then also like then like everybody wants to be your friend because they want a safety pilot for you because they want to get hours too. So I don't really lack in like people being like, hey, you want to go fly? Hey, you want to go fly? So like I'm kind of like always flying just because like I own an aircraft and people are like, hey, let's go here or hey, let's go there. So that's another thing too.
True.
Instructors are also more willing to be like, hey, let's go up and get your 6 heads done or whatever else. So
Yes.
Thank you guys for watching. I hope you like and subscribe. Also, join the conversation in the comments down below if you want to answer any of my questions. and see ya.